Welcome back everyone. We get to finally talk about a device that came out last year and it was kind of like out of the blue. Some people were expecting it, and I made a video about it one time, but I honestly don't remember. And that specific phone is the Google Pixel 3a. And what's funny is I bought it last year, I enjoyed it, and I ended up returning it because I was like, I'm not really going to use it. There's not that many videos I can make about it. And then I had to rebuy it this year. But here's the thing, when Google was shipping these out and getting ready to release it, they actually hit me up, or their marketing team hit me up, and they were like, oh, do you want to go, we'll send you one for free, whatever, like all you have to do is make videos about it, this and that. And I thought it was a scam, and so I didn't even hit them back up or anything like that. I was like, I don't believe you or whatever, but I didn't say anything. And all of a sudden all my friends started getting them. I'm like, oh my god, what happened? They're like, oh, you had to reply to the email. I'm like, oh my god. So I ended up spending like the money to buy it, but they eventually sent me the Pixel 4, so I felt much better. But apparently the Pixel 4a could be coming out very soon too, so I figured this could be the best time to go ahead and drop this video. I've already covered the Pixel 3a XL, as well as every other Pixel phone and every other Nexus phone. For the most part, I've covered it on this channel, I think, at some point. And with the Pixel 3a, what I can tell you is that it's still a very good phone. I mean, I don't want to make this video and sound like I'm like complaining about it or anything like that. I mean, there's definitely things I'm going to be complaining about. I might miss some, gimmicky features that this phone brought. I know there's a couple of them, but I'm going to be hitting on basically the raw things that basically people use every single day. And starting off with the front screen, I mean, we have a 5.6-inch OLED display. It's a 1080p panel, and if you guys remember when this thing came out, the phone this was kind of, being a budget phone for was the Pixel 3 lineup. And if you remember with the Pixel 3 XL, that thing, I don't understand what they were thinking with that notch, but this one, even though, I mean, this was kind of the same size, I think it was a little bit smaller than the Pixel 3 XL, but this thing's screen looks so much better in my opinion, and that's something that I really do appreciate for Google doing. It's very rare that a phone that's a budget phone looks better than the actual flagship that it's kind of the budget phone for. So the panel on this thing isn't even that bad. It's just kind of, I don't know, the phone itself feels kind of more plasticky than a lot of other phones in the market, and even for a cheaper phone, that's kind of one thing to keep in mind. But on Amazon, these things are still selling for like $250, which is not a bad price at all. That is a very good price for this phone, and that's for the base model. So if you want to pick that up for the price that I just said, links will be down in the description. Again, prices do fluctuate, so it could be cheaper, it could be more expensive when you see it. So it's $250 right now, so I will link that down below if you want to get it from there and help support the channel at the same time. But this phone for sure, the panel is one of the better aspects of this phone for sure. On the bottom you have a USB Type-C port. On the top you have a headphone jack, which is really cool. No microSD card slot on this phone, and no IP certification, which actually does kind of suck a little bit, I'm not going to lie, but it's not the end of the world. I'm sure, a lot of people have other things to complain about. And on the back you can see that familiar design, as we all know, and honestly I think this phone looks better than the Pixel 4. I think the Pixel 4 looks, feels better, but I think this phone actually just looks better overall. And you can see we have that fingerprint sensor on the back, as well as that little bit of glass up top, or clear plastic, whatever it is, and that single camera setup. And the camera was actually pretty decent, and it still holds up for sure in this day and age, but I'll talk about that in a second. Now, this phone did have that squeeze for assistant thing, which I'm sure some people might like, and I know I said I wasn't going to talk about the gimmick things, but I'll just talk about it. And I don't really use it. I think it's kind of a cool thing that the phone can detect that, but I don't really use it. I didn't even remember this phone had it until I started squeezing it a second ago. So in terms of the outside, that really pretty much covers it. There's really not too much to hit on, and on the same time, there's really not too much to hate on. It's a very good phone, and there's a little bit of bezel on the top and bottom, but I think for a majority of people it's totally okay. It's not like an end-all be-all, and it's not a deal breaker if you have a little bit of bezel on the top and bottom. And this phone, I still think at the end of the day, looks pretty decent. Now moving on to the software, this thing started off with Android Pie last year. We did get an upgrade for Android 10, which is really cool, and this phone runs Android 10 very well. I love the gesture-based design, I love dark mode, and I think Android 10 is one of my favorite updates in a long time. Even though it looks pretty much the same as Android Pie, I think the gestures and the dark mode itself are two of the main things that I think any Android version should have had stock, and I'm glad they actually brought it into this one. And it makes the phone, it literally makes all Android phones that run Android 10 feel like flagship phones. When I'm so used to using iOS, all the gestures, and with my iPhone 10 even, and with my 11 Pro, they feel so nice and so fluid, and it makes the experience feel that much better. And having to click a button every time to go home or recents or back, it's just kind of archaic in a way, and the gestures really improve that. So with the Pixel 3a, if you bought one last year, make sure you upgrade it to Android 10. That update itself will make your phone feel almost brand new. It will be getting Android 11, it already got the Q for it, and it should be getting Android 12 as well. So it's going to be getting like a couple more years of support, which is really cool. So for sure, at the end of the day, software side of things, it's definitely going to be lasting for quite a bit of time. I'm sure there's roots and custom ROMs out for this thing too, but stock Android is getting really good that it's kind of, I would still recommend custom ROMing if you have the, resources and if you want to, but it's not like a necessity for this phone at all. It's still a very, very good software device in terms of how it stands up right now, and it's like halfway through its life cycle too, which is really cool. If you guys want, I can try to drop a video on my second channel about how Android 11 runs on this, because I can install Android 11 on this if I want to. So let me know if you guys want to see it. I might do it, I might not, but it totally depends if you guys want to see it. But that pretty much covers it up in the software standpoint. Now hitting on the performance, this thing has a Qualcomm Snapdragon 670 chipset, an octa-core CPU, and Adreno 615 GPU, and there actually was only one model of the Google Pixel 3a. I thought there was more than one, but it's a 64 gig model with 4 gigabytes of RAM. Now what I can tell you about the performance is it's pretty much the same exact thing as I saw last year. It was a pretty good performing phone. Really the main downsides of it is the RAM portion, and I will tell you, even though the Pixel 4, kind of brought a little bit more RAM and everything like that, and even though this thing has stock Android, it doesn't require a lot of background process and all that stuff, having more RAM will help you out in the long run. And even phones like the Galaxy S10e from last year that cost maybe like 3 something on Amazon, even though that has one UI and it's not stock, I feel like I'm having a better experience with that in terms of the performance and RAM management and everything than my Pixel 3a. Whenever I load up a bunch of apps in the background and kind of go through the processes like that, I notice that sometimes this phone does get bogged down a little bit, especially if I'm playing a heavy intensive game like Real Racing 3, then I switch over to like a web browser and then I switch back to something else. Like it takes a noticeable amount of time to, if it already doesn't lag out of that game and start over, it'll definitely take a second for it to come to the screen and load. So that's something that does kind of irk me the wrong way. However, what I will tell you though is that with the Android 10, the animations look much smoother, especially when you open up an app, so that's definitely really cool. But still, it does kind of like, I don't know, it just kind of rubs me the wrong way that a phone like this that could be so good is limited by the amount of RAM that it has. So I'm sure for most people on an every day-to-day basis, I'm sure they won't really care too much. I'm sure people aren't going too super crazy, because if they want to get super crazy, they can go buy a Google Pixel 4 or a OnePlus 7T Pro or whatever, Galaxy S20. But this phone is still pretty good, I think, at the end of the day. And in terms of performance, I'll give it a thumbs up just because it is supposed to be a budget phone. It's not supposed to be the top tier. But even in 2019, I think this phone could have been a little bit better in my opinion. So that covers it up in the performance segment. Now hitting on the camera, this thing has a single 12.2 megapixel sensor. It is a wide angle lens, and you're able to shoot 4K at 30 frames, and I think it's a pretty good sensor. They did say it was pretty much the Pixel 3 sensor but just ported over to this phone, and I think that might be the case. I'm not really too sure. The problem though is that we don't have any 4K at 60, and we only have a single camera, which does kind of limit you in 2020 with all these phones coming out now with like triple camera setups and all that. That isn't really the most future-proof design of just having one camera lens. Again, it's not an end-all be-all, but that is something to kind of consider at the end of the day. But you still have a couple features built into the camera too, which is really nice. On the front, you have an 8 megapixel sensor, and it's a wide angle lens as well. You can shoot 1080p video on it. No 4K, no 4K at 60 or anything like that on that front camera. So what I can tell you about the camera, I'll say it's pretty good for a budget phone of last year. It's not like, going to be replacing your DSLR or, it's not going to be better than an 11 Pro or Galaxy S20. But I think for a majority of people, it'll probably be okay at least for a little while. So that pretty much covers it up in the camera. Now this thing does have a 3000 mAh battery, but no wireless charging, which is kind of crazy in 2020. We should have phones in 2020 that have at least wireless charging. We have reverse wireless charging now, so that might limit you a little bit. You might feel a little weird about it, but this thing does have USB Type-C. It does support fast charging and all that, so I think you'll be okay for the most part. And honestly, recently I started wirelessly charging my devices now, and it is actually a pretty cool experience. I feel like I'm sounding like I'm in 2012 right now, but I've always been one of those guys to just plug in my phone and go on my day, but wireless charging is starting to grow on me a little bit. But I think, that's like a small caveat. I think people rather worry about the phone itself than little features like does it have wireless charging or things like that, which is a little bit of a little feature for me. So that pretty much covers it up, everything I wanted to hit on. Now, is the Pixel 3a still worth it in 2020? Absolutely, this phone is still completely worth it. The little things I feel like are kind of rub me the wrong way, like the cameras, maybe the no wireless charging, no IP certification, micro SD cards and stuff like that, I think kind of make up for it in the software department. It being stock and also it getting multiple versions of software year over year, it kind of, makes up for it a little bit. So I think for the majority of people, for me, it's a little bit different because I use so many phones and I'm kind of going through this every single day. But for a majority of you, I think you'll be perfectly okay with this phone. It's $250, probably cheaper if you're watching this a couple months down the line. And I think for a lot of people, it'll be completely worth it in 2020. So that's pretty much it. If you want to pick one up, like I said, links will be down in the description. Hit the like button if you guys enjoyed the video, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count. So it means so much if you guys can hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel. All those links are linked down below. I'd really appreciate if you guys would check it out. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.